So in this video, let's talk about self-inquiry. What is self-inquiry and how do I practice it? Let's address these two questions. So what self-inquiry is inquiring about the self that you take yourself as, the I. See, in our life, everything is constantly changing. Our relationship changes, our jobs change, our bodies changing, our minds changing, the weather's changing, just about everything is changing. But we have this I, the I that everything is kind of revolving around, right? Can we see that in our life? Here's the I, and then I wake up, I brush my teeth, I get in my car, I go to work, I have meetings, I finish work, I come home, right? The I, that's the constant. Everything else is changing. Everything else is different. Self-inquiry is inquiring about that I. It's inquiring into that I. So you can see it as here's the I in the middle, and the outside world, all of the experiences, they're always different. They're always changing. They're always distracting our attention outwardly. They're pulling our attention outwardly. Self-inquiry is turning that attention and pointing it back onto itself, right? Back onto itself. It's turning awareness back onto itself. Awareness is what you are. But awareness can't realize that if all of the attention is going outwardly, distracted by everything that's always changing and different and coming and going. So instead of putting the attention on everything that's coming and going, self-inquiry is turning awareness and putting the attention on that which does not change, which is the I. So that's the practice. The practice is that. Because we never look into this. It's something that we just kind of take for granted or believe or not look. We just don't look. We're always just outward, right? Starting off with just, being a baby, and, there's things that we're learning from our parents, and there's this identification with the body, with the mind. The I becomes identified with the body and the mind. And self-inquiry, it reveals that what you are is not the body and the mind. Because by inquiring into the I, we see that even the body is always changing. Even the mind is always changing. But what is aware that the body is changing and the mind is changing? Because if there is something that's aware, the body is changing and the mind is changing, then that which is aware of the body changing and the mind changing, that must be fundamental. That must be the basis. How can we be something that's coming and going? Yet at the same time, what's aware that something's coming and going? things that are coming and going are like appearances. But what's aware that these appearances are popping up and falling, they're rising and falling? It's awareness that's aware of them. So self-inquiry is, you could say it's inquiring into the self, what I am, who am I? The better term would actually be, what am I? Because you're a what, not a who. But the I gets mixed in with everything that's coming and going, gets attached and identified. And it's that misidentification that causes our suffering. The I gets mixed in. It becomes almost like a solution, right? Just like how, like an oil and vinegar, you shake it, a salad dressing, everything's mixed and it's like a solution. It's one. Self-inquiry is like it's separating you from everything that you're not. And in the meditative state, which is very easy with the transmissions that I share on the channel, the mind gets very slow, steady and calm, and the transmission elevates your awareness. You become very conscious, very still, very silent, and it's much easier to see. Just the same way that when we leave the oil and vinegar solution, the salad dressing alone, and the bottle becomes very still, then there's the separation. The oil rises to the top. Just using it as a metaphor, but it does work that way. With the transmission, you become very still. And in that stillness, it's easy to separate what you are and what you're not. And the realization comes about from actually seeing what you're not. If you can see clearly what you're not, then it's obvious what you are. And that identification, it's broken, it falls away. Happens, it's instantaneous. Another metaphor would be in the stillness of the lake, of the water. It's like you can see your own reflection. When the water's choppy, when there's so much movement of the mind, you can't get the reflection, right? The lakes, when they're so still, you can see the reflection of the trees, the forest, the cottage, the sky. You see it as beautiful. Similarly with your mind, when your mind becomes still, you can see the reflection. Awareness, realizing, I'm awareness. I'm not the I, realizing I'm not the body. Similarly, this happens a little earlier on in the inquiry, is that we look for this, what we believe to be a personal separate entity. Like there's a smaller version of me dressed up in the exact same clothes, sitting somewhere, maybe in the heart, maybe in the solar plexus. If you're in Western culture, it's behind the eye somewhere. There's a little me just kind of dancing up there in my head, kind of thing. We tend to believe, and that's the me that I refer to myself as, the ego, the identity. What self-inquiry does is, by looking for that, again, through just inquiring, right? And then again, no, not this. It's not this. Right? By just through observation. That sense of I, it doesn't really feel like it comes and goes. Especially when you look at how it's the most used word. Right? I woke up, I brushed my teeth, I took a shower. Right? It's so subtle. It's there. It's everything else is attached to it. I'm coming home. Right? I am coming home. It's the base of everything. Everything revolves around that I. So self-inquiry is, okay, let's find this I. It's an exploration. Let's look for it. Find and go seek. Right? Let's look for it. And when we look for it, we never find the separate identity that we call I or me. We never find it. It's never been found. That separate sense of self, it's never found. That some might even just call it the ego. It's never found. It's never found. But you won't realize that unless you look. And right there, that might scare a lot of people. What do you mean? I don't want to find out that who I think I am does not exist. But that's very much the realization. Who you think you are does not exist. But what's aware of that? What's aware of that revelation? What's aware of that discovery? There's something that's aware. It's like for searching, it's looking, where is this I? Where's this I? Where's this I? After constant searching, a very dedicated, disciplined practice, what's aware that it's not there? Awareness. Right? So it happens so fast. So it's very much, again, to realize the truth, it's seeing through the false. It's seeing that the false, something that's fake, something that's a lie, right? A false, it's fake, it's a lie. What's fake is a lie. What's a lie, what's false is unreal. So it's seeing clearly what's unreal. And what is seeing it is the real, is the reality itself. That's what's seeing. That's what's also seeking. You could say pretending to be the seeker. But it's awareness that's seeking itself. And that's what's aware of the seeking energy. That's what's aware of the self-inquiry. So yes, it does take some dedication. It takes some discipline. Although I'm not too sure what happened, here, this experience with me, because it was like I was becoming meditative. It was just very peaceful, very still all the time. Just always watching, observing thoughts, not resisting them, watching them. And it was just so, just kind of stretching and yoga. And one day, and I just kind of really just like becoming one with the breath and moving, just the kind of the question just kind of like just came out of nowhere. It was just like, what's aware? And then that's when the revelation happened. That's when awareness revealed itself, you could say. Although it's very much like an eye. Like an eye, like your physical eye. This eye can see everything except for itself. So when that becomes clear, this eye is seeing everything that's coming and going, but it can never see itself. And seeing everything that's coming and going and seeing the absence of the separate eye, the separate like me, let's call it a me instead of an I, when it can't see the me and start seeing that it's not there. We've looked everywhere. It's not in the memory. It's not in the imagination. It's not in the feelings. It's not in the body. It's not in the mind. It's not the body. It's not the mind. It's not the computer. Where am I? Where's the me? It's what's seeing. It's that eye that's seeing that. It's just kind of coming up with a blank. Like, where am I? Where's the me? It's not. There's no me to be found. But there's something that's aware that there's no me there. What is aware? That awareness is what you are. That awareness is what you are. So that's what the practice, what do we say at the start? What is self-inquiry? That's what self-inquiry is, and that's what the practice looks like. Whatever you're doing in your life, typically a lot of people, it just gets to the kind of the most amount of suffering that they can endure. I'm so unhappy. I'm so sad. I am depressed. Instead of looking at the changing circumstances that you feel is creating the depression, creating the sadness, creating the unhappiness, creating the pain, instead of looking at the changing circumstances that are always coming and going, look at what doesn't come and go. Look for that eye. Because the sadness, it's always coming and going. And it's the same sadness. But what we trick ourselves into is we think that there's different causes of that same feeling. The circumstance A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all are creating at different points in my life, they're all creating the same sadness or the same unhappiness or the same suffering. But we look and we get so distracted by those different circumstances that we're not looking at the I that seems to be experiencing the sadness or the unhappiness. So when that kind of comes, I'm unhappy. I am unhappy. Let's find that I. Let's look for that I. I am depressed. Great. Let's look for the I. Let's find out who's the one that you take yourself as or to be. Who is experiencing that sadness? Who is the experiencer? Is there actually a separate experiencer? Is there a separate doer that we take ourselves to be? I am the doer. I am the experiencer. I am me. With enough self-inquiry, where you can practice, I've got a bunch of guided self-inquiries with the transmission that will still the mind and works at a higher level and helps unblock the mind to see clearly, to let in the light. It unblocks the mind, lets in the light of awareness, which then you can see clearly. Where's that experiencer? There's just the experience of that unhappiness or the experience of the suffering that we're creating because we're actually imagining ourselves as a separate somebody, somebody, or a person. I'm this person. But a person is just like a mental construct because there's a body, but really a person is conceptual. This is a body, but if I say this is a person, that's a little different. That's a mental construct. So you take yourself to be a person, you believe yourself to be a person, you're believing yourself to be a mental construct. And that's a lot of this is the suffering. When we take ourselves to be, when awareness takes itself to be a thought, a mental construct, an image in the mind, right? When we say our self-image, who we think we are, what does it look like? In my mind, that's my self-image. This is the suffering because it's saying that self-image is the one that's suffering. But with the self-inquiry, you're going to the source of that I. Where's that I? It's not there. If it's not there, is who's suffering? Who is suffering? Then it drops. End of suffering. Because for the suffering to exist, there needs to be a separate entity or a separate doer or a separate experiencer of that suffering. And that's revealed, that's realized with self-inquiry.